Hello, this is Chef John from foodwishes.com with apple cider chicken. That's right, if you like apple and you like sweet and sour chicken and you like being told what to do, you should definitely make this simple and delicious dish as soon as possible. And to get started, we'll take a couple boneless, skinless chicken breasts and we will season them very generously on both sides with a mixture of salt, freshly ground black pepper, and a little pinch of cayenne. Or at least that's what I'm using. As long as you include salt, you can season this any way you want. And by the way, these could be boneless, skinless chicken thighs or other chicken parts, whether they have bones and skin or not. Right, your cooking times will change, but the recipe will pretty much be the same. And once our chicken's seasoned, we will set that aside for a few minutes while we melt some butter in a skillet over medium heat. And once it's melted, I'm going to toss in some whole sage leaves, which we will sort of fry and crisp up in the butter. And while we will probably use a couple of these leaves to garnish with later, what we're mostly doing is flavoring the butter and preparing it for our chicken. And whenever we're frying sage like this, you know you're getting close when the leaves stop bubbling. All right, that means the moisture's been cooked out. And you will also see they're starting to take on some color. Right, when we see that, we can remove those from the pan, generally starting with the smaller ones first. And as soon as that last one's been pulled out of the pan, we can place in our chicken, starting with the smoothest side down. And what we'll do, staying on about medium heat, is cook these for about 4 minutes per side, or until they're just barely cooked through. All right, please keep in mind we're going to finish these in the sauce later to reheat them. So we don't want to go too far at this point, otherwise they're going to dry out. And yes, you can raise your heat a little bit if you want. But because these are going to take a little while on each side, we don't want our heat too high. Otherwise the pan might start smoking and your smoke alarms are going off and the inside of your chicken's still raw. So this time at least, medium heat is perfect. And then what we'll do once we think those have gone long enough is remove those to a plate and we'll loosely cover them while we finish the sauce. And for that we will add some minced shallots to our pan and we'll sizzle that in our hot butter for about a minute. And just because I'm fancy and use shallots, you can use any kind of onion here. Or garlic if you want, or any combination. Right, that is just you cooking. But having said that, shallots are really nice in this. And then once our shallots have cooked for a little bit, we will stop and pour in our apple cider or our apple juice, which is our sweet component. And then we'll follow that with our sour component, which is apple cider vinegar. And what we'll do is raise our heat to medium high, and we'll wait for the mixture to start to boil. And once it does, what we'll do is not walk away. Otherwise this will reduce too low and possibly burn, which will cause all kinds of sadness and disappointment. So don't go anywhere. Just hang out observing things for a few minutes until you think this is reduced by half. And no, we don't measure it. We just look and go, yeah, that looks like it's reduced by half. And that's it. Once we've made the call, we'll place our probably still warm chicken back in, and we'll reduce our heat to low. And of course, we will also add the accumulated juices from the plate, since accumulated juices are the best juices. And then all we need to do is simmer this chicken gently for a few minutes until it's fully heated through and safely cooked. And while we do that, we should probably turn it over a few times, as well as take a spoon and baste it with the hot sauce. Although that's mostly just for fun and for show. Okay, if you wanted, you could just simply turn this over every 30 seconds or so until you think it's done. And by the way, there are so many ways you can customize this, so feel free to play around. I mean, you are after all the Jack Bauer of this fruity sweet and sour. And by changing up the vinegar you use, or the fruit juice you use, or the protein you use, you'll be able to come up with way more than 24 different versions. Although I have to say this was pretty much perfect, so maybe just make it like this. And then once we do decide our chicken's done, we will remove that to our serving platter. And then we'll finish this pan sauce in the classic French style by tossing in a cold chunk of butter, and we will turn off the heat. And with the heat off, we will swirl that pan around for about a minute, or until that butter completely disappears. And what happens when you add cold butter to an acidic sauce like this is that fat gets emulsified in, and by the time the butter disappears, you end up with the most gorgeous, glistening, beautifully shiny sauce you've ever seen, which is not really thick, but it's also not thin. It's just right. Oh, and if you did want it a little bit thicker, you'd simply reduce your liquids a little more before you add the butter. But anyway, that was looking perfect. although I did decide it needed one more pinch of salt, which is why we always want to taste this before we serve it. So I swirled that in and then headed over to our chicken, which as you can see are sitting on some gorgeous roasted vegetables, and we'll spoon over enough sauce to generously coat, and then serve any extra alongside. And I'm going to do this on a platter so I can take some pictures. But at home, you could just plate up and place the chicken next to the veggies, and then divide the sauce between the two breasts. And then since we have them, to finish up we'll place over one fried sage leaf. And that's it, what I'm calling apple cider chicken was ready to enjoy. And that, my friends, really was amazing. And I thought had a perfect balance between sweet and sour. Although I did forget my usual trick, where I take a bite off the thinnest, driest end. And if that's good, which it was, I know the rest of the chicken breast is going to be perfect. But anyway, to summarize, no matter where I took a bite, it was good. Oh, and I mentioned earlier how you could do different variations of this. But before I sign off, let me get a little more specific and tell you how amazing this sauce is on pork chops. Oh yeah, if you're happy with just some regular applesauce on your chops, you are going to really, really love this. But anyway, whether you use a different protein or not, or you make this exactly as shown, it is deceptively simple and devastatingly delicious, which is why I really do hope you give it a try soon. So please follow the links below for the ingredient amounts, a printable written recipe, and much more info as usual. And as always, enjoy.